Good evening, morning, afternoon, whatever applies to you, and welcome back to another EuroLeague. I am joined, as always, by Mr. Keire and Nymaera to discuss all things LEC. And hey, last week it was NLC, wasn't it? This week, EU Masters, apparently, or sorry, EMEA Masters, or whatever they're calling it, sponsored by possibly the Saudi government. Anyway, we'll get into all of that after, of course, my patented Would You Rather, which is a pretty simple one this week, guys, grounded in the very industry in which we maneuver gaming. So, Keire, would you rather only be able to play games with friends for the rest of your life, or only be able to play single player games for the rest of your life? I know you
So,
cannot
I
play the multiplayer games but on your own as a get around. It's either multiplayer games, which you play with other people, or
okay,
only single player games.
it's fine. Okay, I think single player games. There was like a point. I think it was maybe like when did the Dragon Age Origins come out?
That was mid 2000s, right? Like
Or
2015.
Dragon
2007,
Age Origins
2008, maybe.
2009. Okay,
Oh,
right.
fucking
So
hell.
2000,
Wow. Wow.
2009. There was like a line in the sand with BioWare roundabout there, and after that date, all single player games are actually all pretty shit in comparison to what existed beforehand. And multiplayer games continue to just do that. Like the quality of single player games didn't get that much better, whereas multiplayer games just skyrocketed afterwards. So I would take multiplayer within like a heartbeat because there's just so many different examples. Like I'm trying to think what's probably the best like single player experience post then. Probably the most it'd be like Dark Souls, which is for me it was probably like a very big
Oh, it really,
defining
again,
game.
it depends what you like, right? Because there are some things which are, look, games to a certain extent, and actually, Rich and I have done some content for this over on LFN with the post-game clarity, which is talking about kind of games as an art form. And a lot of games have moved towards that. Death Stranding is a good example of something which tries to be a cinematic experience as well as a gameplay experience. And something like Ghost of Yotei, Ghost of Tsushima, that plays similar in that too. It's actually more about kind of like the visual and the immersive experience rather than the actual gameplay thing. So I think some of those which have come out over the last 10 years odd have been very, very good.
But I could play. I played 1,000 hours maybe of Dark Souls One PvP, and even
Mm.
then that was like a multiplayer component. But I played 1,000 hours of Dark Souls One, and that was pretty strained. As in, like I can't go back and look at that game and even like really enjoy it the same because I played it that much. If you told me I get to play another 10,000 hours of Dota or another like 15,000 hours of League, I'd be like, sign me up, baby. Log me in, get me in. Honestly, I would. I was like, bro, I could do it without even sweating at all. But like, all just restricted to some of the single player games, and then having to play them over and over again. Like, bro, I played the new Borderlands game by myself, and I was just
Oh, that
like,
was a bad mistake.
oh god! I was like, Jesus Christ, it sucks.
I mean,
This is ass.
obviously, it's going to be massively a personal preference thing. The only little bit of pushback I would give you is the first thing that you said, which is, the multiplayer games have been on a better trajectory than single player games. Which, even if I
Massively.
say, grant you that and say, hey, that's true, I don't think that's something that's going to be stuck in permanency. I think these things come full circle, and I think there'll be decades in time when single player games have a much better uptick than multiplayer games. So to me, that part doesn't really mean much, but each their own. Nymaera, what do you think? What would you go for?
Um, the thing is, I'm actually pretty happy watching people play single player games. Like, I'm pretty happy to watch a video of someone play through a single player game. In fact, actually, a lot of what I do, because, like, so much of my life is sat at my PC watching thousands of games of League of Legends. That's so much of my life. Where I don't often have the energy now to play through single player stuff unless it is for, something like content that we're doing or something that really, really catches my eye. So I've spent crazy amounts of hours watching speedrun videos. I've spent a crazy amount of time watching. So Carnage is probably my most watched YouTuber, and he just plays through everything. I've watched him play through the whole Yakuza series. I've seen him watch him play through most of the Resident Evil games, most like Subnautica, a whole bunch of games which some of them were ones which I wouldn't have played before, and actually I've gone on to play them since then. But I'm pretty happy to watch someone who's kind of play the game in their own way, or watch friends do it, people streaming it on Discord or something like that.
Yeah, a streamer playing like a single player game, I'd rather be subjected to Hungarian ball torture than
Well, it depends on the
watch a
streamer.
streamer.
It depends on the streamer because
No,
it's
no,
it's a
for me, any streamer, I can't handle it, mate. I could watch my friends play something, and I get pleasure out of that. But honestly, there's times I'm watching a
Well,
streamer
I
play,
mean,
and I'm like,
sometimes you find the rare silent playthrough of it, and that can be fine.
By the way,
yeah.
I'm firmly with Keire on this one in that I don't think I've ever, other than actually when you play Ghosts of Yotei or whatever,
Oh,
when
yeah.
you're doing the content stuff, I have never, for non-work purposes, watched a streamer play a single player game. Unless it was like a small little clip of something or whatever. Because one of two things will be true. Either I'll be interested in the game anyway, which means I want to fucking play it myself. I don't want to watch someone else play it. Or I just am not particularly interested in playing the game, in which case, why the hell do I want to watch someone else play it? Like, the only time I would ever click on a video or something of a game would be to see, like, just get a glimpse of, like, does this interest me or not? Does this look like something that would be fun to play? But I could never sit there and watch someone else. I mean,
well, for me, it's like having a TV on at that point.
No, but I was going to say,
something
but
in the background.
here's the thing, though. Here's the thing, and I know these things aren't binary, so it's a bit different. Obviously, a stream is something more easily turned on and turned off, or whatever. But if someone was like, "Hey, how would you like to pass the time? Do you want to watch someone play a video game, or do you want to watch potentially a really good movie you've never seen?" I wonder which would be a better use of time.
Difference in attention is different there.
yeah,
Because
exactly. Yeah.
So like
But this is like a doom scroll argument though, almost, Nymaera.
Oh, no. It's just like what would you do in the background? Would you have like the radio on? Would you have just like daytime TV? Would you do something like that?
No, I agree.
When I'm cooking or I'm doing
daytime
housework, I don't need a movie.
TV is 1990s doom scrolling, mate. That's what that is. Jeremy Kyle.
Has its place.
It's 1990. Yeah, it has its place in
Sometimes,
the fucking
I don't watch that. Again, I wouldn't watch daytime TV, but it takes the same kind of place as something where you don't need to be fully committed to watching it like that in terms of your attention.
I'm with you, Nymaera. How dare this man sitting on this call with me right now make out to me that he's only interested in the highest arts of arts form, and I'm beckoning at the idea, right, of what. How to,
no, there's
to watch daytime TV, you pedant. Like this man here is subjecting me to
There's a spectrum, Keire.
Oh, Rich, here's the best anime of all time. Oh, 100 plus episodes. I can't watch that.
Yeah.
I literally don't.
I knew we'd finally get that
emotional-
back into the intro.
I know. I literally don't have the emotional attention span because I've not developed it above being 12 years old to watch that. Keire,
Is that the reason? Is that the reason?
Or
is that
so hard, Keire?
Or is it that anime, even the best ever anime, is barely even scratches a 5 out of 10 to
Quick,
normal
jump
media?
him in the comments.
Which one is it? Emotional intelligence or anime is an overrated pile of rubbish?
I'll tag you back in now. Nymaera, finish.
So, like, in my opinion, I'm very happy to watch single-player games, at least through certain streamers. I'm happy to watch them. And, like, I don't watch many streamers, but Carnage is the guy which I really watch because he has a very wide breadth of gameplay knowledge. He's always willing to kind of sincerely engage within a game, even if it's not something he'd typically enjoy. And he'll explain to you why he doesn't enjoy it, I mean, objectively, and why he's going to drop something if he is. But I've watched this guy play some very varying stuff, and I'm pretty happy to watch single player games like that. And that fulfills a lot of my itch for single player games. Not all of it. Like, my favorite game of all time is still Halo Combat Evolved. I've still got my case of it somewhere on the shelf over there, signed by the voice actors. And I would be devastated that I wouldn't get to, play back through the Halo series as I do every year or two, or the Mass Effect series. I was playing through that recently. In fact, a year ago, I was talking about playing through it around then. There are a whole load of single-player games which fundamentally changed my life. The Total War games, which can be multiplayer too. But there's a whole bunch of games I would really miss because sometimes I just need to just somewhat turn my brain off and just sink my time into that. However, realistically, much like Keire, I've spent way more hours playing multiplayer games at this point, and that is a very important social niche for me. Like, playing ARAMs or Arena has been most of my life for the last, 10 years, and of course it was solo queue and whatever before that.
That's a good point.
Well.
Obviously, everyone, I assume, watching this lived through some version of COVID. So, like, obviously for a lot of people during that period particularly, that was an outlet.
I'll have you all know I was drunk for the entire time.
Keire,
I did not recognise.
Keire was in Florida, so COVID didn't happen. But yeah.
No, I don't have to say when I lived there. I don't have to doss myself, but I was like... Anyway, on you go.
Keire was sat watching episode 276 of Naruto, being like, "Fucking hell, this is like Citizen Kane. Why don't more people watch anime?" Whoa.
No,
Anyway,
that was me with Gintama, and I'll stand by that.
Yeah. For me, I don't know. I think, yeah, I think most people who like both, in recent times at least, have definitely spent more time probably on multiplayer games than they have single player games, just because obviously the repeatability.
Well, it's because you get more. The repeatability is the big thing, right? And I also think as well, particularly for multiplayer games, like that has taken the niche which kind of, I suppose, PlayStation 2 and the Xbox/Xbox 360 era had, where developers of a lot of niche multiplayer games, so a lot of like friend slop games. So like Yap Yap, if you've seen Yap Yap, which is this game where you're just like little wizard minions in like you're very low polygon, and you're just there, you're just little shitlings trying to destroy another wizard's magical tower, and you get quests to like clog the toilets or steal their books, and you have to like manually shout out the spells you're casting. So fireball, ice beam.
That sounds right down your alleyway, right?
Yeah.
Me and you.
I think
I'm
sure,
all over it.
but this kind of that kind of thing, which actually it doesn't require a crazy amount of processing power, and to the point where PlayStation 2 is the golden era for, if you have an idea, you can probably develop it with a mid-sized budget at most of the time, unless you're doing something very, very ambitious. But that was just, the hardware was enough that you could do most of what you dreamed of without having to be sunk into the tar pit of infinite fidelity of graphics and design. So a lot of multiplayer games have now taken that niche where independent indie creators have created just like, God, I saw a game the other day which is effectively just golf with guns, where you just shoot everyone else before they can get to their ball, and like it delays them, and it's literally not about the amount of shots it takes to get to goal. It's just about delaying everyone else as much as possible with heavy ordnance, and that kind of thing is just it's not high graphics. It doesn't need to be, but there's so many games out there that you could always find something else to do in just the multiplayer market. And I think, as you were saying, I think that multiplayer games are probably the more creative part of the sector. I mean, it started with stuff like Among Us, really, the recent wave.
I mean, I'm genuinely torn though, because again, going back to almost like the snobbery angle to a certain extent, right? Don't you feel like when you play a game, when you play like an ARAM or whatever, and I guess it's hard to remove the social aspects, obviously that's so much of it, but if you just bang out like 5 ARAMs in a row or whatever, and you're like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. But if you play like a really great like single player game properly, it's one of those things where it might take you, if you don't have enough time or whatever it is, there might be a reason you haven't played it up until that point. But when you do finally like sit down and actually play it, if it is really good, like I don't know, playing Mass Effect for the first time or something like that, at the end of it, are you not like so wholly more fulfilled at the end of that than like playing a bunch of ARAMs?
No. I've had like fucking Dota Ancient Defenses, mate, that like I've like thinking of them now makes me like happy, right? Euphoric, the idea, because I just know the other 5 people were seething in rage, mate, like banging their desks, like screaming at them. The friendships that I've caused like to break down, and the arguments and all that is like, oh, the joy that it brings to my mighty heart. Like I get to the end of Mass Effect and I was like, that was an above average like media experience.
How dare you? How dare you?
Right? Mass Effect is just an above average media experience. Have you been exposed to
this guy is the most shameless motherfucker ever. Makes fucking greatest ever anime fucking speeches. Now he's talking about Mass Effect being an above average media experience. Like, fuck me.
The game is
it had to be me. Someone else would have got it
Mass
wrong.
Effect is better than anything collectively that has happened in the anime universe ever by like a long shot.
Of course. No, it's on par with like Heroes. But anyway,
I'll have you know, I watched an anime recently about people going camping, and it was just camping propaganda. It was a very good experience.
Mass Effect is like Mass Effect 1 in particular. 2 is a completely different animal. Mass Effect 1 is like an above average like media experience. It's like pretty good, but the game like portion of it is actually the worst part of the game. And that's one of the things.
The world building's the best part of it.
Yeah, exactly. And
the cosmic horror of the world is really, really good. Yeah. Now, in fact, Mass Effect 1 is my favorite of the trilogy. Now, I like the gameplay portion of it too, but just the atmospherics of it, the
Citadel,
the immersion
awesome
of it is really
the
good.
First time you go there,
yeah, it's worth noting that a lot of the a lot of people. What the heck?
That is Mass Effect. There you go.
Right,
That is
okay.
Mass Effect. That's Dan Simmons and Nymaera, right? Okay. There you go. There's Mass Effect. There's no game.
Endymion, yeah.
There's no nothing. It's just world building. It's brilliant. It's Kino.
No,
You'll love every second of
but the
it.
thing is though, like, and that is the thing about games that allows you to connect to it a lot more and explore it at your own pace. Like, one of my favorite bits of Mass Effect is the fucking codex, just the voiced out codex of this is what happens in this universe, and I really like it.
Yeah, and that is an amazing. But we're actually this section has grown arms and legs, but I digress. It's a fun section, right? One of my biggest problems of when we talk about single player like games, there are hallmark single player games that they are like so much better than everything else. They like stand out and they're like the golden examples. You can pick through them. Witcher 2, Witcher 3, Elden Ring, Dark Souls 3. There's like a couple more. Like, they are just so much better than their peer group, right? Because the aggregate of like single player game has gotten like so bad over like, I mean, like, it starts getting really, really, really tragic. I'm not saying that like multiplayer, but I would say there's maybe like 5 good multiplayer releases or like games with a multiplayer aspect to them to like the one omega peak like thingy game.
And well, it's also worth noting that the multiplayer games just stick around. So
They
do
do,
saturate. They saturate a little more.
They do.
The development cycle of single player games really hurts too. It really hurts actually.
Yeah, and one thing that it cheats on is there are a bunch of single player games that cheat at being multiplayer games. Like, let me give you an example. Baldur's Gate 3 is a single player game to me, okay? But it's not really. You can play it multiplayer just fine.
Well, I mean, then you have ones which
Yeah.
were classically both, like your Call of Duties and your Halos. They were both.
Yeah.
And then you would play them for both kinds. But then you had it really came with. It came with Overwatch and Titanfall technically did it first, but Titanfall did multiplayer only. People were like, "Oh, we want a story mode," and then Overwatch came out. I was like, "Wow, it's great not having a story mode," and Titanfall got shafted for that. And then you've got ones which again bridge that gap a little bit, where it's kind of drop in, drop out multiplayer, like Destiny. That was a big one, right? And I suppose stuff like Diablo too. Even
I mean, the thing is, you also have a huge backlog of games. Like the amount of single player games that I have on my Steam library that I have never touched, and tell myself at some point I will, but maybe I will, maybe I won't, whatever. But there are loads of like brilliant games which either I haven't played or I have played and are still awesome. Like I went back, this a couple of years ago, I went back and played through the original Tomb Raiders. Mate, those games are so fucking good. Like even now, like they stand up so well, and not in the way where most nostalgia merchants
just
are
not
like,
the camera control. The camera control
Sure.
was so bad at those games.
That is true. Although you can like if you know what you're doing, you can get around that. You can like force the camera basically. But yeah, those games are like so much better than like 90% of games that come out today. And there's fucking loads of them, and they're all really long games. And there's like loads of games in different series like that. So I don't know. I don't think it's like, obviously you're more approaching it
Disco
from like
Elysium.
Sure, yeah. You're more approaching it from like what's happened recently or games that have been released recently and like how many are actually that good. Yeah, sure. But, you know, there are still obviously epic games which have like hundreds, like Red Dead Redemption and the GTAs and stuff like this are obviously excellent games as well. But I don't know.
Multiplayer?
Well,
God of War then. Ragnarok.
Yeah, I'm torn. I'd probably go multiplayer, but I actually think it's very close. I was surprised. I thought one of you would maybe go for the single player. I'm still not completely.
I was thinking
sure,
about it, but
honestly.
it's like I can still experience them to a level which I'm happy enough most of the time. To
Right,
say
okay,
I'd
actually,
choose-
very quick before we move on. If you can't watch fucking streamers play these games, would that change it for you?
Yeah, it would actually. Yeah, it actually would.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
Holy
I mean,
shit.
as long as I can watch. Okay, does that apply to multiplayer? I can't watch multiplayer games, so I couldn't watch League at that point.
No.
Oh wait, so I could only play. Oh god, so I couldn't watch the other one. That's kind of shit either way.
No, I guess you can watch it. You can watch the other one. You can watch multiplayer games if you can only play single player games and vice versa. Like
Right, but then I couldn't watch like a streamer.
But
Okay, so
I'm
I
just
couldn't
saying-
watch a streamer play the single.
I'm just
player game.
saying.
Okay,
like,
okay. So okay, in this question, I
weight
would
it.
choose playing multiplayer because I could watch and experience single player as an narrative.
Sure, but now I'm just changing the rules on you and saying if you couldn't watch
But
streamers.
if that was the case, I actually don't know. That would actually be really difficult.
Hello, time skippers.
I probably would
I'm
choose
just
multiplayer still, but I'd be much more unhappy.
Well, there we
Just
go.
because the social, it's so much of my social life. So
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Anyway, moving on to all things esports and starting with this breaking news that, for whatever reason, the Saudis are getting involved in our beautiful ERL scene. Which, by the way, I made a offhand comment about how if the ERLs the way they're going are to be saved, it would probably require some kind of like Middle Eastern money intervention in a very unserious way because I didn't think that would actually be a thing. Well, it is a thing. So there you go. It is a thing. I'm going to read this excerpt from the Sheep Esports article on it, and it goes as follows. EMEA Masters is going to be tied to the Esports World Cup qualification. A major overhaul of the EMEA Masters ecosystem is on the way. According to information obtained by Sheep Esports, the tournament is set to connect directly to qualification for the Esports World Cup, while also introducing a brand new competition involving LEC teams. At the centre of the changes is a new online qualifier for the Esports World Cup, where teams will earn their spots through competition, unlike previous editions, which relied on invitations. The EMEA Masters Winter Edition will serve as the first qualifier to determine the two best ERL teams that will serve as Phase 1. So yeah, I'm now going to get on the screen the actual image so you can all see roughly how this works. I mean, first of all, Nymaera, thoughts on this? Where to start? Where to begin? But your overall thoughts on this breaking news.
there are a couple of huge points which stand out, which is I think the language of that article. Because again, remember these are alleged changes, but I guess this I suppose there may be some room to change, but this obviously looks like it's pretty strong details. The biggest thing is that so last year it was like top 2 from each region would get invited. So technically it was through competition that you were invited. It was just arbitrary top 2 from this region would get the invite effectively. Now this is you compete in a separate qualifier. That's why it's different, which means teams are going to be playing more games. That's the biggest thing. And if this is to be assumed to happen for all of our major regions, which it seems to from this article, that means that every team in the world is going to be playing a bunch more games. In terms of the major regions, it seems like pretty much every region is inviting every team to their qualifiers. This is also alongside what we assume to be the Esports Nation Cup as well. You'll notice in the timeline here that there's the qualifier for on this graphic says it ends on May, and then the event starts on July the 15th. That is a whole month and a half off, so that will be MSI. But then also there will be presumably qualifiers for stuff like the Esports Nations Cup at some point in there too. So if you are someone that is trying to play for MSI and also it means I don't know who's a good example for this. Someone like Caps or Flandre or one of your big name players from somewhere. What happens if you're playing for Esports Nations Cup, Esports World Cup, and your own regional stuff to qualify for MSI as well? You're playing 2 extra tournaments on top of what you would as well. I think we might be reaching the point where we're oversaturating top teams with games. Now, I think it's good for. I think we are. I think we are because we've heard about this before. I know you've had so many different talks about this before, but the problem is, particularly if you have to fly between different locations, like week in week out, potentially for different tournaments and stuff like that, it's going to be very different from our regular league schedule. I think on the whole, that might be better for teams in the West just to get tons more games. But I think for like your peak LCK, LEC, LPL teams, you're probably looking at a crazy amount of extra games chucked into this, which could be an issue. Speaking of those crazy amount of games, these are online qualifiers, but given that EMEA Masters already went from a full broadcast down to just the last 2 days of competition, effectively, the last 3 days of competition, I can't imagine a world where these are broadcast. So... And I also think there are going to be so many games because how many teams are involved in here? Because the stage 1 is 36 teams, and then obviously goes on to effectively a second LEC Versus alongside LEC Spring Split, which is, extra games for the team, sure, but there's a lot of extra games in there. I can't imagine these will be broadcasts, and if they are, there's probably multiple games happening at the same time, I would imagine. I don't know how many it'll be, whether that's 2 or even in the first stage, maybe even more than that, because the EMEA Masters sometimes had like 4 games happening at once, right?
Yeah.
So that's a lot of changes there. So I don't know what happens with the broadcast because I don't think Well, I mean,
They'll,
Riot
they'll
won't
definitely
be handling
broadcast
that.
it. I'm not saying they'll broadcast every game, but they'll for sure broadcast the teams that people find interesting. Like for
Well, I
sure,
don't. Well,
they'll find
who
a
will
way
be
of
doing
doing
that?
it.
Because Riot won't be the ones doing the broadcast for this.
Sure.
This is an
They'll
EWC
they'll
thing, so
they'll
they don't
find a
handle
way
that.
of doing it. Like I have
Mate,
no doubt
they'll
about
just
that.
they'll just do what Valve done and just partner the qualifiers. Remember, like
Yeah,
I'll
but
just give an
who
example.
in Europe would you do that with? Because all of the TOs.
ESL,
I
they
hear
own
the
them.
NLC guys
ESL.
are looking for work.
No, but they own
potentially.
ESL.
Yeah, it would have to be ESL effectively, but I
So
don't know whether
they own,
ESL would do that.
no, they own ESL. They
They're
can tell them
partnered
to
with
do it.
ESL, aren't they? So
Yeah,
Sure,
can,
but
no,
I don't. Yeah, but even then, to put on like 4 different streams for that on top of all the other stuff they're doing, I mean, sure, maybe they do. It would probably have to be that because I don't think this should be handed to any of the ERLs effectively at this point. I think that they are at breaking point. So I don't think that will be a thing.
Here's the thing: if you put the money next to it, football like hanging to the demand. The supply will equal the demand.
Yeah. And then I suppose the other thing too that strikes me from this is suddenly the whole EU Masters system is now tied into Saudi. That's going to be a huge thing. I'm sure that a lot of people who've had issues with say Neom in the past, and I know that EWC has started to be advertised on the major regions and in international tournaments too, but that wasn't something which was encroaching down into EMEA Masters. Now it is. That is another step forwards in terms of Saudi presence within the LoL esports scene and the money in there too. And I know that players typically haven't had issues with it, or if they have, they've not spoken about it. But I do wonder, yeah, I do wonder what this means for teams in the ERLs though, because and some of the fans around there too.
I can count on one hand an amount of players that have taken a moral stance, by the way, on like anything. Like, I'm
There's none with
any-
I'm pretty sure.
Twist from CS. That's the only one I can think of at the moment.
And then there was what's his name? The guy. There was the guy in Dota that won't be he's a oh my god, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. He won't be associated with gambling sponsors because he's a Muslim. What's his name? Jesus. He's from Romania. Oh, I can't believe I forgot his name. Anyway, I'll remember it in a minute.
Yeah.
But honestly, there we go. On you go. Sorry, them.
Yeah.
Sonic
but
Fox
I think effectively
to at one point. Yeah, sorry.
Oh yeah, I remember that. But yeah, I think effectively enough people crossed the Rubicon last year that I think that people think that the complaints have gone now. They'll think that the backlash is done with. And I think a lot of people were waiting to see if EWC would, effectively continue to be a thing. Would it continue to pay good money? I think enough people just think that, well, it's everywhere now, it's inevitable. Obviously, it was a little bit disheartening last year to see people from Tier 1 broadcasts go into that from my perspective. I thought from Tier 2, I'm like, at least they have somewhat of the argument that they need the money, and even then, I think that's, for me, that was a moral red line. I turned it down. But to see people from Tier 1 broadcasts going onto it as well, that was quite difficult.
I'll have you know, they all, as someone who makes less money than all of them, they also needed the money. Checks notes, they also needed the money, Nymaera. I have had it confirmed to me by every person in esports, every player contract signed, every talent contract signed. They did, in fact, always need the money.
Yeah,
the money
I don't know. It's
required.
like I understand that some people feel like it's inevitable, or that it's better that you get the money than someone else does, and I can see some parts in that. But
yeah, why not me?
Yeah, and I'm not going to say that doesn't have any merit, but as someone who did somewhat take a bit of a, I wasn't like crazy public outing or whatever, but I turned it down. I've turned it down a couple of times, and that's not that's not something which I'm willing to work for. It was quite disheartening to see that happen, especially with it made me happy that Dom turned it down for moral reasons, because I think that was a very strong moral stance to take. But yeah, it's very disheartening to see the continued encroachments. Yeah, it's and I mean someone will be crossing that. The esports is large enough, LoL esports is large enough that you'll find someone to do it. But yeah, I'm surprised to see that it was Tier 1 people doing it from the off.
One thing I'm trying to work out, because the wording of this article is somewhat confusing, is it guaranteed that ERL teams will be at the Esports World Cup? Okay.
Yeah.
It's not guaranteed. No, it's not guaranteed.
Okay, so Keire's been
winner
duped by the same language I have, because they keep switching between ERL and EMEA. And I'm thinking that means
EMEA is the
teams,
region.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking, the EM, but it says like 2 winners. It says the best two teams from the EMEA qualifiers and the champion of the LEC split. So I was like,
sorry.
do they mean ERL teams? But they don't. They just mean from the region.
Are you meaning the July bit at the end? Sorry.
So
sorry.
so effectively, the winner of LEC will go regardless from split 2, and then you'll have the qualifier in which two additional teams will qualify. So the total teams attending will be, so Genji gets an auto qualify from last year, 3 extra teams from Korea, so Korea will have 4 total. LPL will have 3, EU will have 3, and that potentially includes teams from EMEA Masters as well. And every other region has 2, so NA, LATAM/CBLOL, and then APAC will have 2 seeds as well, respectively between them. And yeah, so effectively, one thing which is a little bit questionable to me is all 10 teams from LEC will be competing in the qualifier, presumably. What happens if one of them then wins LEC? Because presumably at that point they go as first seed. Do they just continue playing in the qualifier? Do they drop out at that point?
No, I think they'll just do what they do in like football, which is essentially.
Yeah, they just drops down one.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless they're not the first seed, and actually then you just play for seeding in the qualifier. To me, that sounds like it messes up the format, really.
I don't.
Yeah,
well,
that's.
I mean, I don't think it does massively. I mean, what the biggest criticism I've seen, which I, to be honest, don't really understand. Well, no, that's not true. I understand it, but I just vehemently disagree with it. Which is this idea of like. People saying, it goes without saying that it should not be possible for a tier 2 team to qualify for an international tournament. I think that is such nonsense, by the way, for 2 reasons. One, everyone and their granddad's been crying about franchising and the gatekeeping elements of franchising. If you can present, however unrealistic a path to something like this, I think that's fucking awesome, by the way, with one caveat, that you make it really fucking difficult for those teams. But as long as the light exists, to me, that's all that matters. But if for example, I don't know how, exactly how it works. I haven't looked through every fine detail yet. But if you have to play, let's say, 3 best of 5s, I'm not saying that's how it works, but just as an example, and those are all against LEC teams, and you win those 3 best of 5s, and you go to Esports World Cup.
Like what did?
Sure, whatever. Who's saying that that's stupid? Who's saying that that's unfair? That's so earned, it's ridiculous. And then you're going against your own stance on franchising at that point. By the way, like I don't think these people realize what a hypocritical position that is to simultaneously be anti-franchising, but also you want it to be impossible for tier 2 teams to qualify for everything. Hello? Like, wake up. You're arguing against yourself. Like, so fucking stupid. So, as long as we do have that right, which is that it's not guaranteed that an ERL team goes, because that would be really stupid. If it's like, well, no matter what, the best ERL team will go, that would be ridiculous. But if they have to earn it by realistically beating good LEC teams, I think that's fucking awesome. The only issue there, of course, as well, or not the only issue, the only one I can think of right now is if, as Nymaera says, because of scheduling and all the rest of it, maybe you get a couple of LEC teams like phoning it in. That could obviously be a problem. And as you said, if there's a team that wins the split but they're still in the tournament, could you have a weird situation where they essentially like sandbag or something and another team goes that shouldn't go? Like, there are details to be ironed out, but in principle, I'm all for it. Forget all the political shit as well. Like, obviously everyone knows my stance on that, but just in terms of pure formatting and whatever, or the concept, I should say, as I don't yet fully understand the format, I think it's really fucking cool that an ERL team has a hypothetical possibility to go to a tournament like this.
On that note, one of the things which, when I was reading it earlier today, I was wondering, well, does Lost Ratones factor into this? Keire already co-streamed the event last year, so presumably he's over his moral qualms about that event. Wasn't he around during the Neom thing? Was he during that?
Yeah.
So he's over his moral qualms with that, I suppose. I can't remember exactly what he said on that. In fact, I don't think he said very much at all, understandably, because you don't want to get bogged down in that as a big figure. But he said, I think earlier today, that they're not reforming the team to qualify in that anyway. I think technically they could have gone straight into EU Masters Winter because KCB had that same right. I think they technically could have straight qualified, but I don't think they're doing so. So that's not on the cards as far as I'm aware.
Do you think, just a quick thought, do you think the Saudis could pay Reckless to reform Los Ratones?
I think Keire said that they weren't going to.
No, I'm saying I don't think
he's saying independent.
Oh,
of
doing
that.
independently of Keire.
Well, presumably
Oh, now-
Keire owns all the trademarks and everything.
Yeah,
But
what I'm saying
they
is,
just get the roster together effectively on another
Right.
team, just buy into another team.
no, but you'd
effectively.
you'd buy it like with Keire, like they would give the money to have it like with Keire to like because
I mean,
the viewership was like
Keire should like obviously he has what his own what he wants to do
Vision.
is obviously up to him. But if he has any interest and the reason he's not doing it is like financial, for example, he should definitely do that. If the Saudis are like, he's already crossed that line anyway. So if the Saudis were like, hey, here's the funding for your whole team and they'll actually be paid properly or whatever, why the hell wouldn't you do that if you're Caedrel, for sure? By the way,
But
yeah, sorry, go on.
no, on you go.
No, I was going to move on to a slightly different point, which is just to address what you first said, Nymaera, which I think has some merit, but not in the West, which is this idea of like getting into the realms of too many games. Fuck no, not in Europe, mate. These people never play fucking League of Legends. It's crazy. These people do not play League
No,
of
that's why I
Legends.
think it's better for the West, but I think for the top Asian teams, it could be reaching like saturation point.
I actually
Sure.
think here's something. I actually think scrim practice and that culture can cause more burnout in like a vice versa way than I think tournament participation.
Oh,
can.
definitely, without a shadow of a
Right,
doubt.
but
Well,
because
the Gambit would be the big one in the West, right? Where Gambit was so much better at open circuit, going to like weekend tournaments, whatever, than a regular
yeah,
league.
because that's the way that group of players like formulated. They had to like break up, come together, break up, come together. And then when you make a league, I think there is something really intrinsic to the team house practice constant environment, which is if people want to do it, they can. Which is why I've always been like pro. Like, I'll address like this tournament rather than going on too much of the diatribe. I think the reason they've done this is they've been a little bit smart. Like someday at fucking Esports World Cup basically worked out. If you look at the viewership metrics, Europe is the most bipartisan viewership metrics, as in terms of nationalism. Like Koreans will watch the Korean team regardless, and you'll capture that with the Korean seed. The Chinese people will watch the Chinese team, and you'll capture that regardless. That is not as true for the European seed. I think now, like say G2 was there or Fnatic was there or something, I don't think the French and Spanish fans maybe they would care a little bit, but they would care as much as if like Casey and Mad Lions there. Realistically, the way that the esports World Cup fans guys want it is they basically want G2 Mad Lions Casey at this event in terms of viewership capture, and then they want to have like a big qualifier with like national interest watching the qualifier to get like big numbers, because that's where it's like the big viewership is going to come from. I think it'll be like somewhat interesting. You know, it's going to be like a bit like gaming. The one thing I will say is, now that Los Ratones isn't there, does anyone actually think an ERL team makes it?
Oh, to make
No.
it, do they need to make it into top 3 of LEC effectively? No.
Okay. So it's one of these like I know what you're talking about there, Rich, where it's one of these like you know what I mean, you kinda like doing it points. The crazy thing is, okay, is because it's so much like money, do you think people will make better ERL teams to try and capture some of the prize pool?
Well, this is so that's
Fair
the
point,
thing.
yeah.
Mercenary, basically
Yeah,
mercenary.
exactly. I
tier
was going
two
to say
teams,
they
yeah.
won't be real teams. They'll
Yes.
make
Yeah,
teams
make your Rocks
for
Tigers
it.
or whatever.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Like I mean, if you remember, obviously very different thing, but when Origin made a team that was solely built to win EU Masters for like one split or whatever.
I have a picture with that roster. Yeah. It
so,
was
yeah.
what
Froggen,
Expect,
Insect,
Insect, Froggen,
yeah.
Forgiven, and Jezzes. Yeah.
Exactly. Like that, you'll see things like that prop up probably, and also to be honest, I mean, we were talking again. Forget all the politics and everything else. From a player perspective, I think this is really good news because we were talking about disenfranchised but really talented players last episode. I told you, Xerxes doesn't see the point of joining a team right now. If you tell him like, hey, if you're someone who thinks you're just as good as a bunch of LEC players, but you're being gatekept, making a mercenary-like team which takes part in a tournament like this could be absolutely worth it. You could see people, I'm not saying he would, but you could see, I don't know, players like Alfari being like, screw it. I can't really be bothered to get like fully back into a team house environment and yada yada. That's not focusing. There you go.
There we go.
There he is.
Nice blonde
got
hair.
got the old origin.
Yeah.
Got that's blonde mirror there as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
blonde mirror, rare. That's like a shiny Pokemon.
I was literally about to say that. Jesus.
Yeah, like I could imagine someone like an Alfari or someone like that being like, yeah, I don't want to go back, live in Berlin or whatever.
Well,
but hey, why not?
do we
Reckless,
wanna...
a perfect example. Someone who wants to play competitive but
Yeah.
has issues why he doesn't want to do it full time. Like,
well, this is tangential to another conversation, which Monty was bringing this up on Twitter about Fnatic, because clearly we're going to talk about some of the teams from playoffs here, right? But one of the things about the current format of the league's ecosystem and franchising and prize pools going away is it doesn't feel very rewarding to put a ton of effort into teams if you're not getting crazy value out of actually winning things. So actually, having a big prize pool tournament, does that then shift the metrics of something like that? Because realistically, winning LEC is not financially a crazy thing for a team.
I mean, they've literally deleted prize pools. I believe as of this year, there is no prize pool for LEC.
Can I literally just say, right? Okay, fundamentally, okay, at its core, there has to be like esports as like it's like a high risk taker like metric. Obviously, like franchiser like takes that out. Like prize pool, and a lot of like other esports, less so now, but like because of just the way it changed, was the lifeblood. As in, if you were not getting prize money, you would make changes. Yeah. You can't have the team, so you have to make the changes. And even if you wouldn't be playing, you would not have, oh, I'm going to play with my friends, unless that person had like a economic breadbasket to take that risk from the previously won like prize money that he had done. Because so one of the problems is by making the scene more fair in terms of like player access to wealth and equity, right? You've actually made it less fair for in terms of player access to wealth based on ability. Yeah. And because the people who should or be able to access large amounts of like wealth through prize pool by being the best cannot in this system, because they can be locked out by factors that they have no control over, bigotry, what do you call it, fucking folk not liking you, stuff like that. The biggest example of this, it's the one that me and Veteran used to always talk about, is like Jizuki. Jizuki had the fucking mark of Cain next to his name, right? Until he literally got like a bunch of guys together on the Vitality or the Giants roster as it was to begin with, forced his way into LEC by, like, he literally took the spot from someone else, right? And said, I deserve to belong here, right? But he was not going to be picked up by like a team. And then this came to fruition for Steelback, where because of his reputation as an ADC player, he couldn't get back into the LEC as a support. There's so many different players. But you've actually made the scene less fair because of this. For me, I don't like the location that it's came from, but it's a move in the right direction. One of the things, just to harpen on back to it, Rich, is in terms of like something that I think would be really interesting, because someone talked about it to me, and it was something that was discussed in Dota years ago. It would be like a hub qualifier, process where like Riot like announces where like a bunch of like set tournaments are going to be in the year, and then teams know where to like be like geographically, like for like specific like qualifiers. And so you can plan out your like schedule, like what Nymaera's talking about in terms of like flying around and stuff like that. And then each of like, so you could have like an open circuit if you want to participate in that, which is like maybe not done by Riot, but it's thingy. And then you can also have like the leagues, and like the players like choose like between the two. You know what I mean? You don't have to do like vice versa. And I know that kind of like pees off the tier 1 guys who like bought into like the franchise leagues, like the LEC and stuff like that. But the whole thing is like, well, you're maybe not just completely restricted to like your league. For example, there might be like space in it. Like, here's the thing. Remember, we used to only have like 2 splits. I know it seems so long ago now because we're so used to the 3 splits.
Well, in EU it was 22 the last time we had 2 splits, right? 23
yeah, exactly.
was the first time we had a winter split. So, we had it a year earlier than the other regions.
Other regions, and so it's like, looking at the value, do you actually think, I know in terms of sponsors and teams, do you actually think the value of these winter splits has been that high?
I think they've tried to make it lower value over time, haven't they, for Winter? Because they couldn't convince people it was valuable enough. They've ended up adding first stand, but like LCK is trying to make it not a real split. LEC
Yep.
is now trying to make it not a real split. I think they're intentionally now trying to make Winter a lower intensity split where they can be a bit more experimental. But it does come with negatives too, right? Because then you've got a whole chunk of the year which is just not as valuable.
I mean, for me, like you can improve formats and stuff or whatever generally in terms of the basic sort of regional or the basic domestic league system or whatever. You can tweak it, you can improve it, whatever. The most important thing and the reason why it's not been like absolute must watch Kino for a while outside of what was it, spring last year was awesome. I think it was spring, or was it winter? I can't remember. One of the two was really good.
Yeah.
Is just because the storylines suck or slash are
Yeah, they
non-existent.
don't.
And
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think that's the biggest thing. And I think something like this inherently builds storylines. I mean, I'm not saying every team
Yeah.
would be as big or as interesting as Los Ratones coming up, but I think if you create this ecosystem where, first of all, Path to Pro or Tier 1 becomes much more interesting again, because if you're seeing people, that's always a big question, right? It's like, oh, we're gambling on someone based off computer metrics. Oh, we're gambling on Jackie's because he just did really well on the supercomputer or he looked good in ERLs or whatever. It's like now you actually get to see people play against LEC because the gamble is always, okay, this guy looked good in, Seren looked like a great mid laner in an ERL league, but can he actually lane against Caps? Can he actually do X, Y, and
But
Z?
here's the problem,
And this
Rich.
helps
Look
you
where
see
this
that.
is. This is in spring, which is the place that we have the least amount of problems with it. It's spring's the period of the year. Spring and summer are the periods of the year where league's at its actual best. Because now we've got the built-in thing where MSI matters. So like people actually want to go to MSI, right? So rather than filling up the shitty winter period, right? Well, this is now going on top of spring, which is my only concern. You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
As in, like,
I
spring
agree.
last year. Yeah,
Yeah.
spring last year was the best period of Europe. By the way,
Yeah.
remember they made summer terrible with the two groups, right? Spring into MSI was probably the best period of League of Legends last year, right?
Yeah.
Worlds wasn't that good last year. Summer wasn't that good last year. But fucking spring into MSI was fucking
And then
Kino.
it's just last year it was it was not Masters, fucking, it was MSI and then Esports World Cup, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. And you had
you don't want
anyone's
that.
legend and G2
Well,
beating
I mean,
BLG.
Yeah, I mean,
and,
in just in Europe, we had like KC somehow not make it to MSI, and MKOI
exactly.
unexpectedly came to life.
Yeah.
Jojo really leveling up,
Yeah.
Alvaro and Super locking in. G2 recovered, so then obviously we had like G2 losing regionally for the first time. So for the first time in a while, really. So G2 losing 2 finals back to back. That was kind of crazy for them. We had T1 and Gen G both coming in at good power, but yeah, at anyone's legend were really good. I suppose BLG disappointed. That's one thing for them.
I think that there's only one.
The only thing that sucked
Yeah.
about it was LCK didn't have playoffs. LCK literally was just
true.
like, yeah.
And we even had
LCK were just
CFO,
like,
right? CFO were really
Yeah.
impressing at that point too. So
I
we
guess
had
they
like a whole global thing.
They have to do it on the, because I agree. Like you basically you want to space out the good shit,
Yes.
but the issue
Yes.
is you actually can't unless you rejig. So basically, what you have to do, and by the way, they should do this. They should definitely do this, but they have to completely redo the scheduling of ERL leagues to match up with this, so it can go into winter. That's what they need to
Yes,
do. That's what they need to do.
exactly.
Because yeah, I agree. Because
Yes.
otherwise, it's like if I go to a bunch of players and say, "Hey, you're all fucking awesome, but you're teamless. Let's have a run at this." It doesn't work because if they start in winter, they're not qualified for anything, right? And then,
Yes.
yeah, so they need to do it. So those teams are being created in November. And then it's
Yes.
qualifying for winter. And then, yeah, I agree. If you space it out like that, then also you have a full year of like different highs as you go along,
Yes,
whereas everything
exactly.
being stacked on top of each other.
And-
No, I agree. That would be better.
And that's not. And by the way, I'm not a fucking esports logistics. I'm not like some insider. You know what I mean? Like it's very easy for me to sit here and condescendingly go like, "Oh, this would be better," right? But I'm just saying you're kind of like slapping more on top of the area of league where we have the least amount of problems, in my opinion, right? The two areas of league that have the most amount of problems is that gap between Summer and Worlds, which is fucking awful every single time because all the best teams fall off a cliff because they don't play, You can't. Ring rust is a real thing. It happens
Yep.
all the time. The people who are the best don't practice as much as the people who look at Worlds and go, I could win that, and I just came second. And the person who just won LCK is kind of like, well, I've just won LCK. You're meant keeping that super sharp mentality. If you had a tournament in between Worlds and when they ended, it would have changed the outcome of loads of the World Championships. By the way, not just like in terms of T1 wouldn't have won them, as in like T1 would have been more favoured at some of them, they would have been less favoured at some of them, like, and like vice versa. Not even just like trying to make it more like varied, you would have had completely different looking tournaments. It unnaturally creates a set of circumstances based on like an arbitrary creation, because Riot literally has a monopoly over the calendar.
Yeah.
Yes.
The issue, obviously, the one big logistical issue I'm thinking is like the problem is that when off-season happens in the West, loads of people are going to be like, but what if I get signed to an LEC team? And the problem is if you shift back...
Well, this is where the IEM regionals used to come in, right? Like IEM Oakland, IEM Cologne, where we had these kind of qualifiers for IEM back like over 10 years ago. But then the problem was that because that wasn't tied to the Riot circuit and it didn't feel like the IEM event itself was that prestigious, then teams started not going to the qualifiers, and we ended up getting like a lot of teams towards the end of it, they just didn't.
I mean, the biggest issue is just no one's going to sign a contract, because if they're like, if they're in that weird spot of I'm really good, but I'm not guaranteed to be on an LEC team, they're going to wait, and then they're not going to play the start of the tournament, which is going to qualify for the thing in winter, which is why it's probably set up how it is. But whatever, we'll see. I mean, we don't obviously have all the details yet. Technically, I guess it's not confirmed, but let's be real, it is definitely happening. But let's move on from that for now and talk about all things current LEC, LEC Versus. And let's start with the game or the series and the teams we just saw, I suppose. I did ask you guys last week if you thought G2 had maybe turned a corner. I was actually a little bit surprised, not shocked. But for me, because, you know, my whole thing all split has basically been G2 just want to be at the dance. They don't care about seeding. They just want to be in playoffs, and then you'll see if G2 are good or not. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I didn't think, you know, they looked really fucking bad in different areas or whatever, because I did, and I said that I did. But I did feel like they would probably come at least somewhat good at the end. Doesn't mean I thought they'd win necessarily. I thought KC still like looked like one of the better teams or whatever. But I'm not surprised that G2, looks a lot better now. And obviously, between when we last spoke and now, they have brutalized their two biggest rivals, absolutely massacred them. So, yeah, current thoughts, Nymaera, on G2.
G2 are the best first 5 minutes team in the league by quite a long way. I think their early game is really, really fucking good. I think it has helped that every single lane is playing much better in matchups, and I think they're coming in with clear game plans. I thought already in the regular split, Skewmon was still good. I thought Skewmon was still playing really well. I think that Labrov was a little bit more hit and miss, but Skewmon was playing very well. But now I think BB, who I think had a very bad regular split compared to his even his caliber, which are often in regular split, isn't fantastic, actually. It was one of his worst. Hans Sammer wasn't playing great either, and I don't think the draft's very good. So when I saw the KC match, in fact, actually, I'm going to go find a quick timestamp, but there's a point, like, very early into the first game against KC where they really showed me some very good early game macro, and I was very, very impressed with them, because they came in with a great understanding of matchups and a great understanding of how things kind of go in like jungle matchups, but then how that affects the whole map. So I'm trying to find the exact timestamp of this. So I'm going to go into a clip now. So for those of you on audio, this is going to be G2 versus KC, the first game that we saw. And the first important thing which happens is Broken Blade starts a proxy in topside. This is actually going to be quite an extended clip, because there's a lot of stuff which happens over the course of like about a minute and a half. So I'm going to put it on for quite extended speed. So you'll notice here on the minimap and on the screen now, BB goes for the proxy, which is really important, because Canna can't afford to drop this and drop the entire wave. If you do that, you take too much of an XP hit. Also, in terms of role quest, is something that Noam Watley highlighted before. If you stand basically beyond this line, you start losing time on your role quest as well, whereas if you go beyond the enemy turret, you don't lose that in the same way. So BB, even if he's interrupted here, is in a good spot. They also know that jungler is pathing from top to bot side. That will become important later, because we'll see something very, very important happen in the next few seconds as well. So BB ends up using this proxy to get a cheater recall, because as he recalls effectively right now, you'll see on the minimap doing that there, he's recalling probably about 10 seconds earlier than Sion does. That means that he can go back to base, spend, go to top lane without blowing teleport. Sion can't do the same thing. Next important thing happens exactly as he gets back to base here too. Because bot lane have won the 2v2 push, that means that Vi gets the bot side scuttle crab. Why is this important? Well, that's because Zahen cannot finish his clear by going bot side. He has to go to top side scuttle crab. I think Yike is about to make a huge mistake. Canna does too, but I think both of them don't understand the threat which is happening right now. Canna is teleporting back to top lane because it was a proxied wave. The wave is slow pushing back towards Broken Blade. He is in deep shit if he gets ganked before he can crash that wave. So, Yike needs to be top lane to protect the bounce, but he's going to walk towards topside Scuttle Crab while Vi is recalling on the other side, because he gets to recall earlier because his bot lane got on the bot side Scuttle. If your lane wins the Scuttle Crab at the end of your clear, so if you both junglers are pathing the same way, so top to bot, if your bot lane wins you the Scuttle Crab, they have bought you about 15 to 20 seconds of time, because the other jungler has to path up towards the other side of the map, take the Scuttle Crab before they can recall for the first items in the game. So G2 have used the proxy to put just a dagger just hanging above the neck of Canna, and bot lane win on the other side of the map, which means that Vi can get towards top lane. Canna really needs to crash this. This lane is so fucked. And you'll see that Yike is recalling in top river, but he doesn't have items. He can't fight if anything happens here. I think what he had to do was recall, just get some less components and just immediately sprint topside to get topside Scuttle Crab potentially, but then the problem is that might get fought over, and then Canna dies on the bounce. Canna dies on the bounce because I don't think that Canna or Yike and the rest of the team realize the threat which is going under. So this all happens in the space of about a minute and a half. It is absolutely insane. I love the proxy. I love the whole map play to put just this catch-22 of Canna is fucked.
Argument, Canna misplays this massively. If you want the non-catch-22, just die in the wave. That's die in the wave. Just die in the wave. If you just die, if Canna just dies in the wave, doesn't use his flash, doesn't panic, just dies in the wave, accepts that he's a 400 gold ATM, right? Just die in the wave and make sure that wave goes under the turret. You're in a much better position.
Yeah, I think it's still bad if he does die in the wave.
Yeah.
This is just worst case scenario.
But
and
that's
why I posted about this when it happened. I was like, oh my god, this is a game losing mistake. And actually what I'm going to do, I'm just going to stay on the clip here as well, because there's something quite funny. You'll notice at the very end of the game, because everything explodes from this point, you'll notice that Broken Blade ends up with something like a 7,000 gold difference in top lane, going on 8,000. I'm actually not sure if they show the scoreboard right at the end of the game. Whatever, I'll drag it back to like a little bit before that. But he ends up just getting so ungodly far ahead that the game basically ends. You see here, right here, it's almost 7,000 gold lead. And I think it ends up being the 7th largest top lane lead of all time. And I think that all stems from this, it's quite, innocuous moment. You think, oh, it's a first blood, and you think that's bad, but the setup for it was so fucking good from G2. So that was
the first. It is really good from G2.
Yeah, because it's a whole map play. Bot lane has to win bot lane. Vi has to know I'm getting very efficient clear. I'm immediately running topside, and it has to be set up by the proxy as well. Everyone but Caps ends up contributing to this play, which was really, really fun for me. It's a whole map win.
So what's really funny is in yesteryears, LCK teams would do this, but they would reset the support and send the support topside. But you can't do that anymore because of the XP thing. Is that correct? Yes, right? Which is what people used to say when they meant, oh, they play bot to top. Right, okay? Because they would create pressure bot lane.
And that frees up the support to then fix the rest of the map.
Fix the rest of the map, right? What's really funny is this has got like echoes of that, right? But without the support player actually having to move like across the map. I still think Canna creates like the worst possible scenario of it when he chooses to zombie and use flash.
And by the way, I know he dies with his ward up. If he takes the time to ward the brush, he's still fucked anyway.
He's not
so
pushing.
Actually, he needs to be pushing all of that time. So I think Yike potentially could have put a ward down. It doesn't change anything. Even if I think that Skewmon does a really good job just going through the lane to make sure he's not seen by the vision. It doesn't particularly matter. Canna is still screwed on the wave, and if he doesn't break that, then he's going to be losing 2 waves. As it happens, he dies and also doesn't break it, so the game just kind of explodes from there.
So, not just beyond this clip. Interestingly, I think it might not be the record, but I think, funnily enough, BB set like the DPM record for top lane. He's done
Shit, really?
1,002. Well, I think it is. It's 1,280 DPM playing
What?
Gwen, and the other one, guys. What else is he playing?
Is it
Rumble.
Rumble? Yeah.
He's playing. BB is now playing Rumble, so we are
Yeah.
beyond. We have moved beyond the BB doesn't play Rumble point, and I'm happy to see him playing
Yeah.
Rumble because it just opens up. You know what I mean? As I said, as BB got worse, the criticism of him not being able to play Rumble increases. I think Kehu was really bad, in both series.
Oh, I'm done with the clip
Particularly,
now, Rich. I don't know whether you're still on stream, but I'm done with
No,
it.
yeah.
particularly the Anivia game. That Anivia game on the bird was an absolute fucking shocker. And that game is only that close because they literally have got like the comp sent from hell. Like that Carmen comp team required like them losing every lane almost, and then Yike hitting like every single smite and Skewmo missing them, and even then, and with them all playing terrible, loads of them playing terribly, and it was still like pretty close. Like Caps has like 5 kills or something at like 10 minutes on Rise. It's like how's that happened in these like game conditions? Kehu's cross map play and his like lane assignment in terms of like it can be like pretty awful, I think, in terms of like where he is on the map, what he's farming. I don't think it was the hottest series for that series in particular. Don't think it was the hottest series for Busio. Think
Brucey
he's
had a nightmare. Yeah.
but a bit of nightmare. The thing is like I would never pick out this G2 series, right, as like a primo Yike series, right? But under the conditions of like his mid was losing, his top was losing, and his bot lane was winning but making loads of mistakes and dying, by the way, to like Skewmon ganks and that. So you've got like 2.5 losing lanes on average. He makes this game, this series, look way closer than it
You
has
know what's
to be.
funny? I actually think this series is like shows how unbelievably good Yike is, because Skewmon, by the way, is a joke of a player. That guy is so fucking good at League of Legends, and Yike is the only human in LEC who can hang with him, by the way, like on an individual level. Like
we saw like the next best guy in El Yoyo.
Yeah, I mean, mate, we've talked about El Yoyo, being the rock. The MKOI haven't had a great split, but he's been really good or whatever. Mate, that series was a massacre, like an actual jungle diff massacre. And Yike is the only guy right now. Like the gap between Skewmond and Yike, and then and Relic,
gap
obviously.
Between the next two.
Weird scenario because his team's not great.
Yeah,
Obviously.
but here's the thing: Relic is not as good a jungler as Skewmond is Yike. He's just a hard carry, as in like he just carries.
It's more visible.
Team. Yeah, it's more visible, right? But as an actual like jungler, the macro decision making, like that play there of like going top on the reset, hanging a. Does Relic make those types of plays, those types of reads as often as Yike and Skewmon does? No, but like in terms of like his input to his team, I would say Relic is a more important player. That's why I think he's the candidate for like MVP. Yeah, but they are just better players than them. The thing is I actually think the second game in particular, Skewmond doesn't play that well. But Skewmond
he overdives and that's why it goes long. Yeah.
Skewmon's not good games are still really fucking good, and it takes Yike like stealing 5 objectives to make the games close. The guy's a freak.
One thing which I was really interested in too, I think G2 have had some really good draft reads, some really good ones. In fact, I was talking to a team analyst the other day about how I hadn't considered how good Nami is into Anivia. Because if we're going to see like Rise countered by Anivia, what else deals with Anivia? Typically stuff that displaces her from being able to keep her storm up and kind of force her to play against something else ranged. And you don't think about ranged in support that much. But if Anivia has to be aware of a tidal wave, she is much less valuable as a champion. Particularly in the game 2 of G2 Karmine Core, there was... so it's a Rumble or Jarvan, which is already something you have to be very aware of as a backline. If suddenly you have tidal wave 2, even if you Zhonya's the Cataclysm, you're going to get hit by a tidal wave and a bubble out of that, and you're probably dead. And I have to say, I think that one of the reasons that Yahoo had a worse game in that game too is that I actually think that the secret tech into Anivia is actually Nami. Now, I don't always love Corki Nami, but I think that Nami is really good into Anivia right now, and I think G2 had a very good read on that.
For me, go
on.
See, for me, it's like Anivia is such a weird like champion in terms of like I remember like, okay, let me give you an example. If you can evaluate champion strengths properly in League of Legends, you end up in this really weird place. Let me give you. This is going to sound mental, but give me like a bit of rope here, okay? This is funny. If you actually think Ryze is the Apocalypse, one of the 4 horsemen, right? Okay, he's the fucking death on the pale horse, right? Which he might be, okay? And Nivea's value goes up massively because of how she makes that. So she's now like, as what the LEC would say, a Z tier counter, okay? People like me think like Ivern is like nuts, so you're not gonna like see him here. Ivern does allow you to do similar things to like what a Nivea allows you to do. But what's funny is like if you think Ivern is insane, then you have to acknowledge that like, well, one of the champions that Ivern cannot deal with is Master Yi. So Master Yi then becomes like this insane like counter pick because Master Yi just karate chops Ivern to death, right, and just like zims through him and kills him. But then Rammus kind of becomes really good because then Rammus means Master. But you would never think or Master Yi or Rammus or like Z tier champions.
Well, we saw this earlier this split, just coming off of Demacia Cup and Casper Cup, because we came off of Worlds where it was Orianna Yunara, and then the answer to that was actually Syndra into Orianna at those tournaments, and then Aphelios into the Yunara. So then when both of them were really strong, because then suddenly you have another 2 immobile carries, Malphite became really important too, and that also helped because Jace was meta. And then because Malphite was meta, suddenly Silas is like the god tier pick in a bunch of drafts because you're dealing with like Malphite and Alistar ults in the same game. You're like, holy fuck, this is unlosable. So you have this kind of flowchart as the meta evolves,
Yeah, and so what's really funny is it's like pro players manage to do it like in some regards. They manage to like they manage to get it like so right, like in terms of like how many more like Seraphines we're seeing, Namis, like what do you call it? You're now seeing the Nivea Rise and stuff like that, okay? But it's like weird in the sense of like all these like champions are like increasing in terms of like how much they're like being played, okay? But like see if you go to like playoffs and you go to picks and bans, right? Jarvan's sitting at what 7 and so 3 wins, 4 losses, pick ban, and how many bans? 10 bans. Bro, Jarvan should be going through the roof if you actually thought he was as good as he was. Like, if Enchanters, Nivea, Ryze, and Jarvan's winning 3 games, doesn't that just tell you that we were like how badly pros were evaluating this champion before? And it's like, okay, we're going to add even more immobile squishies, and are we going to keep playing them? No. It's like it's so strange. I just don't know where that paradigm like comes from of like the failure to be able to evaluate champions in some regard, and then they come up with different answers in the other. Just to come back to the game of that tirade, big ups BB, great series from him. Kinda had a mare, followed by a later mare that we're about to get to. But here's the thing, and this I'm getting into the habit of doing this, but it's why I always say it. I say it probably like 3 times. BO1s are the fakest League of Legends ever created by human beings on planet Earth, right? Because we have to actually
folks, delete regular season. Discuss.
I mean, yeah, it should be like League should just be like a
feels
triple
so
limb
fucking
tournament
useless.
or something of like.
No, but just do the spring split of. By the way, spring split BO3s, 16s make it. By the way, G2 wouldn't have made. Well, they would have made it because they've been playing BO3s. But like in terms of the seeding, they would have been 7th. They wouldn't have made it. It would have mattered. Regular season would have mattered, and they would have fucked up. You know what I mean? But obviously, they'd have been playing BO3s, right?
And
BO3 fearless. Well, no, you get what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Now, I actually think G2 actually improved from this series to the next series again. But what do you call it? You know, this is like a lot of the problems I think that like G2 like showed, they were able to like sharpen up, and that's why I get really frustrated with the team now, Rich. To turn it into a bigger point, right? G2 is now this good, right? On the 23rd of February, right? Why can we not have just been this good on week 2 of regular split, and then you're even better by the 23rd of February, and yeah, like you know what I mean, you're able to do something really special. More fools you, by the way. Like you winning LEC is expected of you, right? It's how you go to first stand and perform is how this team gets rated, by the way, by their own self-admission. And I want this G2 team to go to first stand because I think they're one of our best contenders and our best opportunists for it. But you know what I mean? It's just that it's right round the corner, and looking at them, how good are you? Because I don't think there's a world in hell that the team that I'm watching today can stand anywhere near what's getting sent against them.
I mean, G2 looked pretty impressive today in versus KC. They did, and I think they are glowing up. I think that Cloud9 beats them right now, which is not something, I think Cloud9's better than any European team for now, and we'll see how that keeps on going, right? Because, I mean, Cloud9 are head and shoulders above the rest of the teams in their region, but it just looks like it's just ritual slaughter over there. It's just not close, and I do fear, actually, that LEC teams are going to get out-team fought by Cloud9. And I think if C9 go international, I think LEC could have egg on his face again, because last year, KC were very, very close to bombing out, remember? They were. They had to ramp up into the event. And I'm quite worried that,
Oh, by the way,
Cloud9 looks like a decent team.
It's 2 LPL teams and 2 LCK teams, so it's even harder, by the way.
Yeah, and it won't be top esports.
and the other thing is, here's another crazy one for you, Rich, right? T1 isn't going there, mate. Who's to say you can't win it? Why? Why can it not? This is the thing of if you actually think you're as good as you are, why can it not be won? It's that thinking of oh, Koreans are there, you can't win it. There's that how you end up in the trap of oh, nobody's beating a BO5. If you're there and you're actually contender, it's there to be won. But on a greater point, I think G2's made a lot of massive improvements. I think BB's had a massive individual turnaround. Playoff BB actually did come, and he did come through massively in this series. The only thing I would say that's somewhat concerning for me is on a relative level, I think this is probably Hansama's worst tenure of form for a little bit of time. I've not been overall that impressed with Hansama, and the connecting play with Labrov in lane still just... Hansama Mickey X, basically the entire time they were together, was almost always a better lane than I've seen Hansama Labrov.
And besides some specific points, but yeah.
Oh well, apart from Summer was they entered hell, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. I do think, again, biases aside, I think Labrov's been better than Hansama this split so far. I think, I think Hansama has been
Hansama's been the worst G2 player.
Yeah, he's been unfairly judged over the last, basically the entire time he's been on G2. I think Hansama's been undervalued, but this is his worst split that I can remember at least.
I would agree with that, but I do think that Labrov's been... so the problem is now, I think that Hansama was quiet, and I think he suffered from the fact that G2 had bad meta reads. However, he did also play poorly, so how much do you attribute to either thing? Hansama, today, played fucking excellent. He was so good on the Ashe today, it was unreal. Whereas, Labrov had a couple of missteps. I think that currently...
I think he was good on the Ashe, but I don't think his Yunara or his Sever was that good.
I don't think they were excellent, but I think they were fine. But the Ashe was good. I will say, I have to say, things are going to get really weird though, because I did a full-on VOD review of how T1 kind of crashed and burned today, and I think one of the things which got to them is Keire being on enchanters. He's a good enchanter player, but it's not what the team needs. Now you have a team
it's like EDG with Mako, by the way. It's one-to-one parallels. Good at enchanters, but your team,
your team has evolved because T1 needed roaming support, Keire flipping the map because he's so damn good at that and allowed them to play very fast, aggressive League of Legends. That's something which MKOI has typically done as well. They really want Alvaro to be on Alistair, Rel, Rakan. I know he did play a Rakan game today, but I think that putting him on stuff like this... Oh, Kira's just died. That's going to mess up the overlay, isn't it? Would you like me to keep talking?
Yeah, it's looking good. It's looking good. Keep going.
So, one of the things which I think that really applies to MKOI is that... Are you alive? Hello. You good there, Keire?
Right, we'll talk about it.
Okay. So I think one of the things which really affected MKOI is the fact that Alvaro is going on to stuff like the Seraphine. He's going on to Enchanters, and I think Labrov is a better Lulu player, and I think that G2 are better at playing around Enchanters as a team than MKOI are, because they need someone like Alvaro, and I think the same with Busio as well, actually. I think Busio and Alvaro are more important to their teams on roaming instigators, playmakers, and I don't think G2 needs Labrov to do that, because I think they actually have much more understanding of a team, how to engage as a team on the whole. Now that's not always true because occasionally you'll see, Skew Mod overdrive on the Jarvan as we saw in the KC game. But I still think that they have a better understanding of that than the other top teams in the LEC right now. So if we are going towards hard enchanter meta, Ashe Seraphine, even more Lulu. I know we've seen that in the split anyway. Labrov's obviously been a big Karma player too. On the whole, I think G2 stand to gain the most because they care less about Labrov being on the enchanters than the other teams do.
Yeah, wouldn't disagree with that. By the way, I think Labrov's just been the best support in Europe anyway. I'm not even saying he's been like spectacularly good, but I think if you
I would have
actually
said
think
Busio
about it,
before playoffs, but I think Busio's had a
up
worse
to now,
playoffs.
I think it's definitely Labrov. Like Busio,
If you include the last two series, I think
horrible.
you.
Oh my
Well,
God.
I think that I do think. Look, Labrov had a couple of missteps today, and I saw like some of the post game comments being like really shredding him, and I think they went too far. I still think that Labrov was the better support than Alvaro, like today. I think.
Oh
he's
yeah,
better
by
than
miles.
because Alvaro
Yeah.
was really not great today. So then at the point you go down the list, who else has been really good? I mean, Busio was good. I think Busio didn't
No
look
one is
great
the
versus
answer, by the way.
G2.
Mickey was shit.
Yeah.
Like,
And then Busio's had a couple of shaky games in playoffs. Mickey was really bad. So who else is it? It is actually just Labrov right now.
yeah. But anyway, let's
Bless
talk
you.
about the team on the other side of the rift today. Obviously, MKOI. Now, again, before the start of the split, we all had them in our top three, different orders, but top three. They, of course, look a mile off. Not necessarily too shocking in the sense that G2 are usually the yardstick. But what do you think, Keire, are the main reasons why MKOI look a million miles away from G2? Do you think there's anything new that we've learned
Yeah.
from regular season until now, or how do you see it?
Oh yeah, Merwin's form just like the same way like the BB is able to turn it on. Merwin, this has been one of Merwin's worst runs of form. Really quite poor in my opinion. I think Elyoya is still good and does everything that team needs them to do, but he is not staggeringly like because other people have regressed. His weaknesses show more, right? I think JoJo's, yeah, I know what the temperature is not above 20, so inability to play. Put it this way, I actually think we're at the stage where you're talking about like, and this is concerning, but cool for him. Supa is either the best or second best ADC in the league right now, probably behind Caliph.
I'm trying to. So yeah, no, I just realized Discord overlay is kind of broken.
That's
For
okay.
Tell us. Yeah, I think
You can still
Callista's
give it to
probably
upset,
the best.
honestly, like as the second best.
Nah, I don't think so. I think
thought it
Supa's
was
been better than that.
fine.
I think folk don't realise how bad Alvaro is and how well, like Supa does have his problems.
The laning of Super and Alvaro was pretty good. I think just outside a lane that Alvaro's gotten a lot worse. Weirdly, Noah's still probably up there actually. Although he's had a couple of duff games, so it's not as clear cut. Because I thought Noah was clearly best AD carry, and I think that's more contested now.
So I think Supa is basically the only person you're looking at here who's like a continual, consistent, like elite threat in a European standard. I think
Is that including his throws as well from Super though? Because
he's had some throws.
He's had a fuck ton of throws again.
But not. But here's the thing: relative to like his teammates and like the positions he was in, I don't think
at least he's in a
anywhere near
position to carry. I guess is the argument.
Yeah, and the whole thing is like I think Caliph probably overall from the recent showings was like better, but like for me, you know what I mean. I think JoJo and I think Alvaro and Merwin, I think their levels have just decreased like way too much on an individual. And one of the concerning things of like Mad Koi is team fighting was never their strength, and so skirmishing and picking onto the map and playing for sides was always something that they had to do because they knew, well, no, maybe no, but they would require the gold leads because of their inherent disadvantage in team fighting. And I think on the map they're just way worse than G2. In saying that, this exact same thing happened in spring. They lost to G2 pretty badly in the upper bracket, and then in the final, it was a completely different story. So hopefully that doesn't return.
Oh yeah, because I remember in that split, it was solo lane demolition in the first matchup, and then in finals, that didn't come to be, and actually MKOI had a much better read on drafts. So, for instance,
Yes.
against KC, they were finding out stuff like, was it it was Trundle into Skarner, I think that they had. And it was even stuff like they started picking out Senna. They had a really good read on the meta. I remember they started picking Trundle when no one else was. Stuff like Senna, Cassiopeia, I believe, were around at that point too when no one else is really picking them. So unless they get themselves a big soul-searching moment where they can find the right drafts and some like really broken champions in meta, which I will say, there are some out there. I think there are some really turbo broken champions which are not getting played that much right now. I think that we said this last week. I've said this a lot during the split in general. The creativity of drafts around the world haven't been fantastic. I think there's some room to abuse the top lane quest. I think there's some room to abuse the bot lane quest too. They probably do need to dig for that now, and I think they need to dig in such a way that it allows Alvaro to be a bigger player in the game again, because I don't think he looks very comfortable in the meta currently.
The other thing is I'm pretty sure in this series, right, that we just watched here, let me just check before I speak out of my backside.
Can we tell the difference?
Not bad. Skimon, Delioya won. Skimon, Delioya. Yeah, they gave Elioya Xin Zhao and beat it. They beat the on Xin Zhao.
Well, not only that, he beat him bad, like really bad.
Yeah. And that's usually like a big no-no in terms of like Elioya when he gets those Zing games, that tends to be like a big pivot point in terms of like, oh, we've got the Zing game, we secure the win here, and then we like, you know what I mean, the series is like 1-1 or something, and we like try and turn it. Doesn't help that Alvaro went like died 8 times, and like the bot lane pushing bot
difficult, yeah.
yeah, the pushing bot lane became anti-pushing bot lane, but you know what I mean, all's well.
Yeah. Moving on to our favourite team of the show, although no longer after their heinous crimes against League of Legends. We do need to talk about the series that obviously happened after this in the lower bracket between KC and Vitality.
Who are you talking about, Rich? I only know Naknako. Who's this Vitality that you're speaking of?
Team Naknako Gaming.
Team Naknako Gaming, yep.
Yeah, Naknako Gaming fought bravely, but ultimately some treacherous rodents betrayed our Lord and Saviour, and KC lucked their way through. But yeah, no, this was a travesty to behold, I have to say. Did I put this on Twitter, or maybe it was I can't remember. This was a top 5 humanoid int moment for me, not understanding basic mechanics of League of Legends, which did, if you really look at the chain of events that happened afterwards and what almost certainly would have happened had he not done it, basically he just solo lost the series. Now I'm not going to pretend.
Do you want to find me the timestamp? We could go find it.
It's at
I'll
the
go have a look.
Drake
you go
fight.
Yeah.
I think
continue.
Is it for Casey's Soul maybe or something? It's like it's that Drake. He's on Oriana. It's game 2, and he just walks up like he has no chance of catching them or killing them. I don't know what he's doing. He is just inting like that. He's just straight up inting. It's an absolute disgrace, and he literally eliminated Vitality from Winter. It's as simple as that. So yeah, I'm fuming because I thought this was going to be, I wanted to see the Naknako train continue to its next stop, let's put it that way. But instead, it derailed, it fell off the tracks, it landed on 7 innocent children on its way past, and now we're all mourning the collective loss of this humanoid int.
Do you see there was like that drink driving advert or something like that? I think it was only aired in like Northern Ireland or something like that, where it's like, so there's a really beautiful acoustic the beautiful acoustic cover of Sweet Child of Mine. At the end of it, just a car just runs over it like a field of children. It's like, what? That's just gone down in internet infamy.
Hell yeah. Anyway, yeah, so Nymaera, thoughts on this series, thoughts on the departing Vitality and what went wrong. And yeah, let me know when you have that clip up as well, and we'll have a nice little look at that fight, because that was a doozy.
We'll find the timestamp. I can't remember exactly where it was, so someone else is gonna have to go find that for me. But yeah, I mean, Oh, what to say? What to say? Vitality forever the razor cake, and I was trying to triage exactly why Vitality are all over the place. I think Vitality are not very good at figuring out where the next fight on the map is going to be. So I think sometimes when fights start, they're as confused as we are, and they have to somehow figure out a way to resolve the play. Now, sometimes they have very, strong individual members, or someone's just kind of in the right area to kind
Yeah,
of
by
just
the
riff
way,
off of
as
it.
soon as I made that comment about Kazi basically being washed, he decided to play League of
True.
Legends again. So 2 thumbs up
Yeah,
for
I
me.
mean, yeah, I think that look, Kazi had a good Ezreal game this series. I think he was largely demolished by Callisto in the other games. In credit to Knock Knocker bringing out stuff like the Yasuo top again, but yeah, and I think that second game was very winnable. Humanoid got fed, and then obviously the big problem was actually when he died, the times in that game, it was a fed member going down at that point. Those don't weigh the same as someone who doesn't have the resources. A fed mid lane needs to do an awful lot. But I suppose the other thing which comes out from this series too, because that game 2 is the one which we really question is could they have done it then, and our answer is they probably should have done. But my worry is Vitality have to have had, because remembering last year as well, some of the least clutch pressure drafting in the entire LEC. When it comes down to a game deciding match, they will be ambitious with their draft. And that's what I've called it before, ambitious drafting. And I do really mean that because sometimes it's good. It's not always bad, but they try something different. I think a lot of the time it has bitten them. I think there were some times where it should have bitten them more. I think their regular season for game versus SK, they gave over a bunch of S tier power champions, and they somehow walked away with that win, despite what I thought was a horrific draft. But you remember back to last year in 2025, similar group of players. You've only changed that mid lane, right? And then some of the games where they were trying to qualify for playoffs. Remember when they had that TF draft last year when it just went to shit, and it was Kazi on com saying, "Well, oh, don't worry, we made it back in that one game back on Mad Lions." Oh wait, that was a more playable draft though. Or actually, like on the comms, we got it on the broadcast. They were shit talking the draft. There's been a lot of questions about the coaching staff of Vitality, and while I think that ambitious drafting is fun to watch, I think it has brought them some good stuff. This game 3 with the 0 damage comp of like Twisted Fate Seraphine as Seraphine being a
Yeah.
carry, Seraphine Braum, with your life on the line, how does that happen? Who is raising the red flags? Who is not noticing that is an unplayable draft? I don't know what the comms are like. Someone has to have the lights on there and say, hang on, this is fucked. Because walking into that, I mean, they walked away with like 2 kills the entire game. They basically had 0 fucking damage. And those 2 kills both came from Linus early ganking before the damage really comes a problem when champions actually have to build items and do damage. That was a
This
travesty.
draft was approved by the coach of coaches, so I don't know what your problem is, Nymaera. The herald of all
The only thing I
the
would say on
world.
this is like similar to the series they lost previously to whoever it was. I can't remember. Who did they lose before this? I can't remember. But it was the Chrono Break series. Who was
They
that
lost
again?
to Mad Lions.
Oh, Mad Lions, yeah. So similar to after they lost whichever game it was, game 1 or game 2, in the way that they lost it. I think after they threw like it's not
Are you talking?
guaranteed that.
Wait, wait, is the humanoid throw where he just walks up to
Yeah.
Aurora and just gets one shot?
Yeah.
All right, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's not guaranteed that they win the game or something if Humanoid doesn't do that, but I do think.
So okay, for audio listeners, we found the timestamp of
Oh,
game
here we
2
go.
where Humanoid. It's 28 minutes dead on. Game 2, the fight looks good. They've killed the bot lane. Wow, excellent. Humanoid walks up. He loses his Seraph shield. Gets killed by an Aurora because he
What's
just
he
doesn't
doing?
expect
He's
a
never
regular
gonna kill
combat. In fact, let's just slow it all the way down when it gets to it again and think. Okay, so he has Seraphs at this point, and then it wears off. As is
Yeah.
his
By the
E
way, look.
shield.
Yeah. It's by the way, it's KC Soul. It's KC or on Soul Point. By the
And you've
way,
just killed the bot lane.
and you've just
I
killed the
know you
bot
don't have a
lane.
smite, but you could reset with an Orianna teleport.
You know the thing is.
There's no way you look at that health bar and you're like, yeah, I'm getting one shot here. Come on.
No, it's an Aurora with Electrocute, and you've just lost all your shields, and everyone's like level 17.
This is an
do.
unforgivably bad mistake, by the way. This is like I deserve to never.
You don't have
breathe
Shockwave
again
to increase your range
mistake,
either.
like-
There's no world. You don't stand to gain anything by walking forwards. There.
No,
besides
this is the
dealing a
thing.
recall.
Okay, best case, right? Which isn't the best case because it's impossible. But let's pretend that best case is that he can kill her. He can't, by the way. Spoiler: he cannot kill her. But let's pretend that he could. If you kill her, it changes almost nothing, by the way. Whereas if you die, you lose the game. You literally lose the entire game for nothing. That's why I wrote on Twitter, Humanoid is the king of the zero reward, high risk play. He just loves dying for fun. It's like that Yasuo, no, the Yone play at Worlds or whatever, where he's just like, I really want to try and kill Showmaker. Whoops, I'm dead. What happens if he kills Showmaker? Not much. What happens if he dies to Showmaker? Fucking disaster and the whole game gets thrown. Like, Humanoid is a moron, by the way. Like, in terms of, like, in-game IQ, this guy is so stupid. It's unbelievable. Like, you cannot be a top-level League of Legends player and have this many, like, lapses. You know, we talk, like, a historical talking point is, like, Jackie Love, like, throwing, right? The way Jackie Love throws a game of League of Legends is, like, stepping up too much in mid lane without flash and getting caught. Or, even worse, like, flashing forward into 3 players because he misjudges the distance and getting turned on a one-shot. Right? Those are, like, calculations gone wrong and he gets punished for them, right? This is sheer inting. Like, this is complete pure int in its purest form. This is worse than any int Jackie Love has ever done.
Nah, no, it's not.
This is.
No, it's not.
It is.
It isn't. No, it's not. It isn't. Okay, I'm going to... Okay, you go too far, Rich, right?
No,
the
this
problem
is
that you
worse.
do... Right, listen, I'm not going to get into a competition. As a man who does not even watch the LPL, right?
That's true. That's true.
You have no idea.
In playoffs.
Right, you have no idea. Okay, even in playoffs, Game 5, the series is actually won. All you have to do is go to Drake and auto attack as an ADC, and you'll be an LPL champion. Jackie Love flashes over a wall, dashes over a wall to 1v1 an Aatrox, who then just TPs away, so he never doesn't have flash or dash, and then he then dashes into the middle of the enemy team as Zeri and insta-kills himself to lose the LPL final. That is worse than anything Humanoid has ever done.
No, that's not... Even the way you described it, that's not as bad, by the way. Like, you could, for example, just explain it away and be like, this idiot didn't realise that Aatrox had teleport up. It's already better. It's already better.
No, you're never killing him.
Then why is he teleporting away?
What do you mean? He just recalls.
Why? If Jackie Love wants to 1v1 him and you say, oh, he's never killing him, why is he going back?
And
why
Jackie Love loses his flash.
Oh, don't you? Look, Jackie Love's definitely done some like no-brain
this
as
is
well.
worse. This is worse.
Look, I will say, Humanoid has more of a trend of doing it for no,
way more of it.
no, like conceivable reward. I will understand. I will say that, but it's not like Jackie Love hasn't had his. What the hell did you?
Oh,
just
no
do
one's denying that. I'm just saying this. No joke. I cannot. If this is in the top 5 worst plays of all time, I don't mean in terms of like incompetency or whatever. I mean, when you take in all the metrics and the primary metric being it's also a completely pointless play and you lose the game if you die, this is a top 5 int of all time, by the way. Like, without a doubt that I've seen.
There are some pretty bad ints in there.
Of course. But usually, though, it will be like, oh my god, what is this guy doing? That was such bad gameplay. It'll be like one metric where you're like, that's crazy how bad that was. This ticks like every box. Unbelievably high leverage moment.
Yeah,
unbelievable
really
mechanical incompetence. Complete lack of understanding of how the game works. Like this is like a bronze player just wandering in and dying and not understanding what enemy champ does. Like this is up there. Anyway, carry on.
Either way, Vitality, once again, the Razor Cake. They once again failed to deliver on what was actually quite promising. Yeah, I mean, we've had a couple of Razor Cakes here, right? Because GX are another Razor Cake. They're still in for now. I thought they'd actually lose to Na'Vi.
Well, yeah, thanks GX for ruining a fucking interesting storyline only for you guys to get bodied next series.
So do you want to talk about one of those teams next? Because I think, Vitality, they're a Razor Cake. I think that they had creative drafts, but they were over-ambitious with them. I think their clutch drafting has been poor. And I don't think they're great at finding the next play on the map. It's more like they kind of like stumble into the next play a lot of the time, and then they just kind of rally around it, which is why more organized teams like KC just kind of eat them eventually, where they're better at predicting the next part of a fight or the next play on the map on the whole, because Yike is typically very, very good at that. But yeah, Vitality, I don't know, it's just the same story. They show some promising, flashy gameplay, and I do wonder if some of that chaos on the map is partly because Flashy is just not great at moving on the map. Not that Lince's always is either, but I wonder if Flashy not always being able to see the next play is hurting this team, because it tends to be with supports. It tends to be a big part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, as I said, obviously Na'Vi lost to GX, which is kind of upsetting because GX up until this series have basically shown zero good League of Legends as a collective, like as a team. They've just been pretty bad. Obviously Noah's been very good, Jun's been decent. It's not like they've all been crap every single game, but they are like the least inspiring team, I think, that, you know.
Jackie's is 5.4 out of 10.
Jackie's is just bad. Like, Jackie's should not be in the league, in my opinion, at the moment. He's just bad. But whatever.
Mate, there's worse players than Jackie's. Come on.
In mid?
Yeah, come on.
Who?
Seren.
Yeah, Seren was worse.
Yeah. All right. Seren. Anyone else?
Let me have a look through it. Vladdy's not been great. I think Vladdy's
yeah,
probably
Vlad, there you go.
There you go.
I
Okay,
think
yeah,
Vladdy
good
was
shout.
worse. I think that Seren was.
Oh, Knock. There you go. Knock.
Knock was pretty bad this split. Obviously, Camille was kind of like on an ERL team, so it doesn't matter as much. And then Leader, maybe. I think
Leader.
Yeah.
All right.
Rex,
He might be mid tier. Jesus.
As I said, he's 5.4 out of 10.
But none of those cunts should be in the league anyway. So.
Should Jackie's be better? Yes, he's been given a lot of time. He feels like another VTO scenario where actually came in very hot and he's just not been able to develop like the gamesmanship.
Well, that guy won an MVP at least. Like,
that guy won an MVP.
No. Sure, for sure. And VTO peaked very well in 22 spring. Was it spring or summer? It was spring, right, where he peaked, and because he got the MVP for that. But yeah, I think that.
By the way, the thing is, when we talk about Jackie's like look promising, it was about like for 3 weeks in spring, like 2 years ago or something. We're like,
no, summer.
Summer. We're like, you know what? He doesn't look that shit right now. That is actually a bit like it gets distorted over time because we like to think of him as like the guy who had a lot of promise, but he basically showed it for like 2.5 weeks, like once upon a time, and every other moment he's been pretty bad.
One rainy day in Norwich.
Yeah,
exactly.
He's like, I don't know, like, yeah. But anyway, obviously they're gonna have to play against KC. Win cons, Nymaera, for this full of momentum Giants X team. Did you see anything in the Na'Vi series that gave you hope? Do you think, oh wow, these guys are actually not that bad? What do you think?
They draft easier to play comps than Na'Vi because Na'Vi's drafting really fell off at the end, sadly. And I think that on the whole, GX play easier to play compositions, which helps. You need to blast bot lane. I think this is
the problem.
You have to blast bot lane.
Your win conditions bot lane, where you need Noah consistently on carries.
And funnily enough, that's just parroting everything that we said last year about GX, where it's just like they have to win bot lane. It turns out they're exactly the same team. I think that lot has been getting. He was started pretty strong, and I think that his individual matchups are getting really scary now to the point where he was getting actually put behind pretty bad by Mainter, whose individual laning was fine. But then obviously Mainter's team fighting was really, really quite ass in some of these important playoffs games. And as we said, I think Jackie's has been fairly poor. And Yahoo's been, I think he's had a couple of issues against Caps, but it's Caps. What can you do? I think that he will. Yeah, true. He did beat him in regular season, right? But I think
I'm just meaning as like just beat him, just beat him. Sure. You know what I mean? Plenty of people just beat the guy, just beat him.
You need Noah with a ton of agency in a snowball lane. So you're hoping like Keire in a good draft, maybe Ezreal in a good draft. You just need him to just do a crazy amount of damage, and then everything else just has to just flip itself into position. This is quite a low percentage series for them. Isma has been on and off. He's had some good games, some not great games. I think he's been one of the better players. I'm quite worried about Lot. I don't think Can has been
Re-
playing fantastic recently, but I think Lot could just be an individual loss condition.
You ready for this?
Go on then.
Your GX. I'm not joking. Lot, you're learning game one, but depending on what kind of picks, you're learning Singe, baby. That's it. Game one, Lot, you're learning Singe, right? Because you're just not going to play top lane. I'm going to have you play as little League of Legends top as possible, right? And every game, I'm making it sound easy, every game we're having Noah on a hyper carry. So it's going to be in the order of Aphelios, Jinx, and then Sivir, Zeri, whatever's left after that, okay? But we're not pairing it with any enchanters, right? Because if I'm going out, I'm having June playing Gage. I'm having him go out on his strength, just not Leona. Right, okay?
Oh yeah,
And
his
if
labour's
I
not good.
and if I need a tank, it's coming from mid lane. I'm gonna have Jackies on Scion mid, Ornn mid, fucking
Galio.
Nautilus mid, Galio, anything I can, right? And then in jungle, a bit of DPS if I need it. Right, okay, we're gonna get grinding, okay? I'm gonna be looking
Maybe not
any
Galio actually has
sort.
too much decision-making responsibility.
No, right? That's the direction I'm going to. You want me to talk about warden plays and map plays? No. We ain't got time for that, right? I'm giving you the quick
Yeah.
lowdown profile, right, okay, on what GX needs to look like, okay? And then once you've done all that, you've maybe got like a 25% chance. Buy a Bible, get in bed, start. To be fair, I think Keire has been fucking balls, by the way. I think he's been absolute shit.
Oh, I don't think
So,
it's been that bad.
yeah, I think he's been tripe, mate.
It wasn't good
Really?
against G2, but like before that, he was decent. One of the better mids.
I don't think he was good. I don't think he was like.
I don't think he was great, but he was completely serviceable. I think. Like
I think in the BO1 series, it was fine. He was like bang average, right? And if other things don't go as well, like Canna, then you don't then carry, I think that's indicative of like your place more than it is of Canna's. You know what I mean? So I'm just not impressed. But I think KC's like 75% chance to win 3-0. And then I also think the jungle matchup's just absolutely fucking murder as well. Well, I did like Isma's Aatrox gank when he went round the terrain with and looked round and killed Mainter. He went round Scuttle with Aatrox and came from behind. But that was also just Mainter, like not counting which side of the map he was on. But it was a nice gank.
yeah, even though obviously, I'd probably make some tweaks to your suggestion of champions they should be playing. I do think it will make me very angry if Giant X show up and try and play vanilla League of Legends trading meta picks. Like, you just can't do that.
You do actually need to trade some meta picks because you need to get KC off of like their everyday comfort. You can't just have like on a real more serious note, you can't just have like Gnar, Jace, Flex, into like Ashe, fucking Caitlyn, Enchanters.
Yeah, but I more mean like,
Azir.
oh, you're gonna be one, whatever you perceive to be the most S tier pick, and then we'll take the second one, and the draft cannot play out conventionally because it will just be shit games of League of Legends in which Giant X lose a minimum of 3 out of 4, but probably 3 out of 3.
Nymaera, are you not really surprised no one has... I know it's like a yesteryear thing.
Mm.
The fact that like Cogma is so good right now with
Oh,
like
with
the
the Dusk
build...
and Dawn?
Yeah, because you have the
like
siege,
AP
you have the...
on
You have
hit
this...
Cogwall.
Yeah, you can do either the DPS build or you can do the AP on hit poke build, right?
It's all
But
about
that
landing matchups, though. There are actually some really good solo queue picks, but
Cogma's one
Yeah.
of the only champions in the game that beats Draven, by the way. As in, like, because level 1's so good, you can health trade Draven and actually beat him with Cogma, because you can abuse W. Now, eventually, Draven, like, Lord Draven
like,
does
am I
arrive,
surprised?
but...
Well, this is what I'm saying. Talking about drafts being uncreative. I think once you go deeper into a series, yeah, you should be picking that stuff because there are some lanes which you can play it into, and it's your job to discover which lanes you can. You need to make sure that you're not playing into Jarvan, Vi, Nocturne, and Bessa because they just kind of insta end your game as well. Like, you can't survive that much there. But no, stuff like Kog'Maw Nami is probably playable right now. Kog'Maw Braum, definitely playable in some circumstances too. This is
But
what I'm
what,
talking about in terms of
Cogma
global...
fresh into Jarvan instead of the Aphelios?
Yeah, there are some worlds where that could happen. Yeah, again, it depends on the bot lane laning phase, because bot lane early push and the ability to actually give your jungler a bit of a platform early on has been really important. We don't really see that many junglers going bot to top anymore. It's almost always top to bot. So your bot lane wants to get that bounce back to fight for Scuttle if at all possible. It probably should be there though, yeah. I mean, so for those of you that don't know, there's basically a Dusk and Dawn build on Kog'Maw, which allows you to like double hit with your W passive, which is just absurdly strong. And it also, I think this is a bug, but it does
Applies
apply your
twice more.
W to towers, which means you shred towers really, really well.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing, okay? One more, just before we bounce it, right? Even like your super like obviously you've got things like Rise which are like ridiculous in the current like scaling. It's really weird that like there's been no more like concessions towards like your Smolders, your
I
Zegs.
think Kale should be
Kale,
picked.
yeah, Kale. We've not
Vladimir.
seen N. Kale, yeah. You get reduced down once Anivia goes away. Vladimir
Yep.
like takes over. Like it's very very strange. And then you have like picks that like the Zaheen, who like when the Jarvan goes in and he wants to brawl. People who like want to be like brawlers. Like if I look at the ranges that loads of like team fights are happening at, like Darius likes enchanters because of the move speed delta. Like Darius jungle is like a thing, a concession, a thing. Like Talon jungle, like is something. I'm so surprised we've not seen any of the Talon, Darius. Once you remove like what's his name, Jarvan from the game, Karthus. Like I know we say it like all the time, right? But Karthus can have
Zyra is
a
kind of huge for this stuff
yeah,
too.
like Karthus can have like a crazy effect on the game in terms of like his AoE zone of control, his items. Like you could do like funky stuff. Like you can like I'm pretty sure you could do like the act. I was saying you could do like the
Well, actualize
actualizer.
it, yeah.
Yeah, you pop like when the people engage onto you, you pop actualizer, and then you just mince everybody, and then it doesn't matter that you've not got any mana because then when you die, you then
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And obviously
yeah,
now,
there are definitely some creativity things which are in like in the pool, but I think on the whole, just for GX, it does come down to bot lane agency still.
yeah, I don't think any of us are probably going to favour them there. Now, obviously, we are now into the sort of the gauntlet phase of it. If KC beat GX, the winner of that matchup plays KOI, obviously, and then the winner of that matchup plays G2 in the final. Has anything changed, or like, what is your current feelings? Excuse me, on who has the best chance of beating G2 in a final? I'm assuming we're putting GX to one side for now, but in terms of like KOI and KC, do you feel like one of them is better equipped than the other? Obviously, I think in terms of being able to match Skewmond in the jungle, Yike looks a lot more equipped from
it
that.
has to be KC.
Canna also had a down series, you could say, against G2. You'd hope that he would play a bit better. So for me, instinctively, it feels like KC are probably better equipped if they get their shit together. But yeah, what do you think, Nymaera? Do you lean more one way than the other?
I mean, it's basically just you've got to set a checklist of things that you need to make things more competitive, and I think that Casey's checklist is shorter than MKOI's. Because for MKOI, you need to figure out what's happening with Alvaro and his comfort champion pool. You need to figure out what's happening with Mirwan because he had a shocker of a series today. Super needs to stop throwing. As well, despite him being a very good high-level carry, just those individual moments just make some games just utterly unplayable. So there's a couple of like, there are several things you got to knock down before I'd put you up to kind of G2's plate right now. KC, I think a lot of it just hinges around better drafts that allow you to survive the early game, and just everything for me just revolves around, can you come out even from the first 5 to 10 minutes? Because G2 are the best 5 to 10 minute game with it playing team within the LEC. But when it gets to mid to late game team fights, KC have given G2 a lot of issues. They have done. You know, it went super late in the game 2 or whatever it was, the first when they played them earlier in the bracket. But yeah, I think that if you survive the first 5 to 10 minutes, I think KC do have the team fighting chops to give G2 some issues. The question is really whether they get the better read on lane matchups, whether their team comps start to recover a little bit, because obviously the last time that we saw this happen with KC as well, back in winter playoffs last year, G2 gave up a lot of draft priorities, and then KC used that to kind of reverse engineer the meta, and that obviously that happened in scrims. G2 kind of ended up revealing too much in scrims. But I'm interested to see whether MKOI or KC, either of them, find some kind of counter meta, as Keire has been talking about, to try and deal with some of G2's priorities. Of course, you can't rely on the fact that they don't play Rumble anymore, because they do, and it actually looks fairly impactful. Got on BB, should have been doing this for years, better late than never. And I think particularly if either of these teams finds a leg over bot lane meta, that does change things an awful lot, because then suddenly you're taking two people out of the game, and I think that Hans and Labrov have not been good from behind the game. They've not been losing gracefully. So if you find a way to get a leg over bot lane meta, which they kind of tried with stuff like the Ashe Seraphine, which I don't think that's counter meta, I think that's a very good meta bot lane right now. But they need to find some stuff which keeps Hans and Labrov down, because I think if you put them behind, the map does tend to fall apart a bit.
I wonder if G2 will be scrimming KC at all this week after getting flipped last time after dicking them down and then getting destroyed in finals. But yeah, Keire, do you say you probably favour KC? I mean, we shouldn't forget that MKOI at certain points last year did also have KC's number. I think they actually are quite ahead in the head-to-head in series at least. So
I think it has to be KC to beat G2 unless G2 have a mare in the finals. To beat like a good version of G2, I think it has to be KC.
In terms of like KC versus MKOI specifically, do you think that's a fairly even matchup, or who do you favour there?
Probably show form still KC. I think there's just too many down pieces right now. I think Yike's just too far ahead of Yoya. I think as the series goes later, I think the depth. The only concern is Kehu in the mid lane, and Jojo like blowing those matchups right over, blowing those matchups open with being a bit more spiky. I think Kalist, like Busso in the bot lane, could really take advantage of like the weaknesses of like Super Alvaro, particularly like Alvaro. Yike and Busso like lay a lot more vision traps. I think Alvaro's been like falling into them. I really wasn't impressed with like the put it this way, like when I see like Nico gameplay like that, you know, Nico's like one of like the F tiers like plus tier picks of the patch. When it's not like you've got that pick and you're doing something, I'm like, wow, could be quite concerning, and you're like a glaring sore point for the team. And it's like, how many down games is Kana going to have? You know, I mean, maybe it's just a down period, same as Merwin, but I've seen him being good during the regular split, so you know, I think it's more like temporary. Plus, you know, I mean, I think KC's like drafts were like good or just misexecuted in terms of the lane. I think KC's shortcomings that they need to shore up are a lot of like individual stuff, and then the team synergy will like come together. Where I think it's in the inverse for Mad Lions.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think it's one of the, not exactly rock paper scissors, but I do actually think that MKOI have a very good chance to beat KC, but I don't really see Koi beating G2 in a final, particularly how unbelievably dominant Skewmond was over Elyoya. I'm not sure how you bridge that gap between now and then. So yeah, we will see. Anyway, we will see. But that is going to be it for this week, guys. So thank you all very much for watching, and we will see you next time.